if you're watching this right now, this is my first, I don't even know if I want to call it like episode, video series, interview series, but I'll give you more information moving forward. But moving forward, we're going to be doing a lot more interview videos. I got my buddy Chad up here today with me, and we're going to go into depth a little bit about his lifestyle, what he does. He's a competitive bodybuilder. He's worked in a couple different avenues, from working at LA Fitness as a PT manager, now working on Equinox out in Boston, PT manager, training. I believe he's a tier 3 trainer out there. So he's got a lot of stuff going on, but he's going to be the first guest I'm going to interview. And we're going to kind of dig into deep detail with him a little bit. So you can see his journey. If you're into training or anything like that, you can kind of see the ups and downs he went through from competing as a bodybuilder to training to being a manager, different things like that. And so I just want to welcome Chad. Welcome to the interview/video.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Yeah, no problem, man. So I kind of want to jump into the bodybuilding side first. So I think that's how we got, we met really. We both were at Springfield. We were instantly kind of into bodybuilding. I know, how old are you now?
24.
Yeah, 24. So I'm 29. I'm old as hell now. But I know when I transferred in, we got a lot going on. So I kind of want to jump right into the fact of like, when we met, you were already into the bodybuilding side. What, initially, how did you get into bodybuilding? Like, what was the reason for you to even get into it in the first place?
Yeah, so it was a real slow process for me. I started super young. We're talking like 12, 13. I remember doing workouts like around my 13th birthday when I moved to New Hampshire. So really, it was nothing crazy to begin with. I was just like any other kid. I just, was doing some curls, a little bit of bench press. It was like not serious at all for probably like the first 6 months. And then what really drove me to get super serious about it was when I moved to New Hampshire from Reading, Mass. And it was like a super culture shock. I felt like I moved to like Texas or something. Not suspected. And everyone was like a tough guy. Everyone was into sports. You were cool if you beat people up. It was completely different. So I felt like really threatened, like on a daily basis. I got beat up like probably a couple times in the first couple of months. It was crazy. And, these kids would barely get punished, get a couple detentions. So I'm like, I have to take this upon myself. So at that point, I was pretty close to my black belt in karate.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, in retrospect, karate is like almost useless for real fighting.
Not like the UFC.
Yeah. The thing is, like, you can have all these skills and whatnot. Like, I had pretty good skills, but it was the confidence. I didn't have that response where I can be in a real situation and be comfortable with it. So when I was in those real situations, I was not using my karate at all. Like, because I was so, I had lacking confidence, let's say, Right. So I started lifting mostly for the confidence. And I was like, you know what? If I can just like visually look tough, then these kids will leave me alone and they'll go for one of the other skinny kids. And that was literally like it for me at the beginning. It was like protect myself.
Right. It wasn't no aesthetic there. It was just, I don't want to die.
No, basically. Yeah. And I lifted in my basement, like almost no equipment. I had like one of those old school benches with like a bench press on it with like a leg extension, leg curl attached to the back. And then I didn't even have a squat rack, so I just deadlifted for lower body. And I had like one of those dumbbells that you just screw the weights on with the little, it was obnoxious. No cables. I had some bands and a pull-up bar. But I was going at it like 6-7 days a week for 2+ hours a day.
How old were you?
So this was like 13, 14, 15 that I was doing this. And it was mostly just upper body. I don't even think I trained legs till I was like 16, which is weird because my legs are like my best body part. But yeah, it was all like chest, arms, abs, all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
So that's what kind of got you into it in the first place.
That's what's into it. Just being bullied.
So when did the transition start to happen where like, all right, I'm getting stronger, I'm building muscle, I can hold my own, and like, did it continue? When did that transition kind of switch? At what age where you're like, oh, I look better, I feel better, I want to start
So it was, I would say maybe the end of 11th grade into 12th grade. I got in a pretty brutal fight that I have no idea how I didn't get suspended or something. But so I switched. I stopped doing karate for about a year, and then I wanted to get back into it, but I went into Muay Thai, which is much different. It's basically like MMA without the wrestling portion. And the coaching was way different. It was like karate. It's like, don't ever use this unless you absolutely have to. Muay Thai, it's like, let's fuck these guys up, you know?
Right.
Totally different mindset. So with that mindset, and then me getting bigger and stronger, and I started to notice, hey, I'm starting to get bigger than everybody. Hey, I'm starting to like just outlift everybody. So I got in a pretty brutal fight. I don't know why I even said the word fight. It wasn't a fight. It was just a kid that bullied me, like pantsed me in the cafeteria, and I head kicked him.
Oh, that went well.
Yeah. And then like after that, my perception kind of changed a little bit. I was like, okay, so I accomplished my original goal. Everyone stays away from me now. But hey, I really like this lifting thing. It gives me confidence. And then it just kind of went from an external, goal to an internal goal. Now I want this for me. I don't care what anyone else thinks. I don't care at all whether they think I'm nuts, whether they think I'm cool. I don't care. It's for me now, and it's not for girls. So that was about when I was like 17, 18.
Gotcha.
In that age, I started doing it for me, and that's when I really started getting super serious with it.
And then I assume like when you went to Springfield, initially you were just like going exercise science because you just love the weightlifting side of it.
Yeah.
Or is
yeah.
it more
so
I
I really had no clue what to do with my life when I was a senior. And I remember reading Muscle and Fitness, and back then Jim Stepani was the editor.
Oh,
yeah, he was so cool back then.
Back then.
Yeah, but and I flipped to the back of the magazine one of these days and just like read his credentials, and I was like, BS exercise science from UConn, and I was like, what's that? Exercise science is a thing? Right. Where can I go?
You don't have to be a doctor or a lawyer.
I probably could have been a lawyer, but my life would have been very, very different if I didn't move to New Hampshire. I would have had.
Why did you end up moving there?
So, I mean, I really don't know. My mother, I think, just wanted to get as far away from my father as possible and make it as difficult as possible for him to see me. And my grandmother lived up there, so it was like kind of like a double win for my mom to do that. Plus, it was cheaper. Reading is stupid cheap where I used to live.
Cool.
It's like, yeah, it's crazy. But so that's why she moved. But it was, like I said before, it was just like very, very different culture. You wouldn't think that in one state away, but.
So now you're at Springfield. We meet, and obviously we're like, I'm in the bodybuilding side. That's actually when I looked like a bodybuilder, started competing.
That was when you messed up your shoulder, and I remember you lost a lot of size.
Oh, I dislocated my shoulder.
Yeah.
So like I started to in a men's softball league.
Because I remember Tyler going when he introduced me, and you were talking all this lifting stuff, and I was like, this kid doesn't look like he lifts. And Tyler goes, he's like us. He just messed up his shoulder. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Okay, yeah, he's cool. Yeah, he's good. He late lifts. It's crazy too, because I get my body responded so well after that. It was funny because like I went from like I have a picture. It's like my favorite before and after. My favorite picture is like in a Springfield bathroom, like on a hands on hip, just like double flex. My delts looked fucking sick, but it's crazy because like so then obviously I was competing then. And then I know like that point you started to be like, hey, I want to compete, but I don't know when I want to compete. I'm not big enough yet. And then like when you made that, so obviously you made the decision to compete. When did you do your first show?
So it was June 18th last year.
June 18th of last year. Okay. So
Yeah.
okay. So then when did that click that you're like, okay, I'm ready to step on stage, or did you not feel ready at that point? Because for me, I was like, did I tell you I did a men's physique when I was like
Yeah, and
22 years old?
I remember you
Came
telling
in
me
last, and it was the worst experience of my entire life. And then took me like 3 years before I was like, all right, I'm gonna do bodybuilding. I'm gonna be smaller than most people, but I'll come in shredded. And then for me, I was like, I'm not ready, but I'm just gonna go for it and see what happens. Zero expectation. But was it similar to like that with you? You're just like, all right, whatever. We're just gonna finally do it.
So for me, I always knew I wanted to do it. I mean, to be honest, I was on the fence for a while. A lot of it was just money, really, because it's expensive as
Right.
heck. And I'm obviously not natural either, so it's even more expensive. So a lot of it was just that. A lot of it was just I didn't have the mindset yet. But the biggest thing was for me in life, I don't like to do something unless I know like I have a good chance of succeeding.
Right.
Like,
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, like there's a lot of people that compete, and kudos to them that they know they're not going to do well, but they just want to do it, and
Right.
That's awesome. I'm not like that.
There's so many people like that now. Like
Yeah.
when I competed, I did the men's physique. I just had no idea. I had a shitty coach and stuff. And then at that point, I was just like, I'm putting it all on my shoulders, and I'm just gonna ride or die on myself. When I did my first one, zero expectations, but the same thing. I knew like I could out diet everybody and out discipline them, and it's just what was gonna happen, at that point. So I can relate completely to that side of it. And then so first show you did, and you've done one or two?
Just one.
You've done the one. So how did you end up doing that one? Like expectations that you had compared to how it went?
Fourth overall, I did, which I thought that was fine. It was more just what I wanted to look like, not what place I got. And of course, I think I looked better than the other three guys. Well, the guy who got first was clearly first, but the other two guys, it was questionable. But I knew that could happen. It's the NPC. It's very political sometimes.
It's so much
very
politics.
Small show.
It's subjective, right?
So I didn't let myself get too upset about it. I thought I did well. It was just a me thing. Like, and for me, like, the competing was just like the icing on the cake. The cake was the 12 weeks of brutal
process
dieting. 3 injections a day, starving, not sleeping, 2 hours of cardio. I did way too much everything.
Right. You were dieting hard.
I kind of had this mindset. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go balls to walls this time. So that next time I'll know exactly how much I should do.
Yeah.
And boy, did I do that.
So I think most people don't understand until, the other thing, there's two kinds of people. There's people that actually like are all in doing it. And like you said, the people that just want to I want to step on stage, and they're probably 12 weeks out from actually being really ready. But so what are two things? Like some of the obviously you had to sacrifice a lot. When you do a show, your mind goes into another level.
Yeah.
So what do you feel like the most difficult things for balancing life were for you when you were going into prep? Was what do you think it was? Whether it was, relationship stuff, family stuff,
it was
food, friend, whatever.
I mean, obviously you sacrifice your sanity with being hungry, but that's a given. But I remember thinking constantly throughout that prep, how the hell do people do this who are in a relationship? Because I had absolutely no desire to have sex or anything related to women in any way at all.
Yeah.
Like a girl could be sitting on my lap, I'd be like, get off me. It was so that. And I was thinking that all the time. I was like, God.
I had my blood work done, dude. After that show, I had like a 218 test level.
Oof.
Let's just say I didn't have a sex drive.
Yeah, and what's even funnier is I was obviously blasting, testosterone, and it's still no sex drive. So it's
such a deficit. You're just in such a deficit.
It's just like your body is like, you're not having sex right now. Go eat. What's wrong with you?
We need to digest
more humans. Are you crazy?
Right. We need my glycogen for my brain, not my.
Yeah. So there was that, and then the second thing I would just say is just my attitude, and chalk it up to the hungriness, chalk it up to the drugs, whatever. It was just like I was a dick.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
well,
and especially when I was lifting, someone would like stand in front of me. I'd be like just burning through the back of them with my eyes, like, but I liked it. It was weird. Yeah.
It's a motto I kept saying throughout the whole prep is that I'm just going to embrace the suck. And you just got to embrace,
I like that.
The more it sucks, you almost have to create, like, that's the better I'm going to do. Like, that's the mindset you have to have. The more discomfort you have, the more opportunity you have to do better. It was bad. Do you have a moment, like, I can remember, like, my last prep, I have one moment, I actually videoed it and put it on YouTube. It's a weird-ass video. It's at me, like, 2 a.m. It's when I was working at Equinox. If you go to my YouTube channel, it's like a 12-minute video of me laying in bed at, like, 1 or 2 a.m. And I'm just sitting there, like it was like a turning point where I was just dead. Trying, like, exactly it now. Like, the hustle at Equinox, mid-prep, I'm biking to work. I didn't have a vehicle. It was just a shit show. Yeah, I was carrying my food in a backpack, like my eggs and stuff. So
that's next level.
Dude, I videoed a lot of it. So I was pumped.
That's fun. I'll have to watch that.
Do you have a moment or two, like, where you're just like, fuck this, I'm done? Or, like, that sticks in your head? Or it didn't
I mean, I definitely fucked up the diet a few times. I actually,
didn't want to do the show. Like, you were just like, I can't do this. Fuck this.
Yeah, I did have one of those. Let me say this first, and I'll get to that story. But I had a sticky note on my fridge. Literally, times I fucked up right there on my fridge.
That's great.
So it was like in my face, like, and I was determined to keep that. And I counted everything. Like,
I counted.
Like,
I counted romaine lettuce.
Yeah. And look, literally, if I had like too much chicken, I would count that as a fuck up. And I was determined. I was like, you know what? I'm giving myself realistic 10 tallies on this prep, and I am not going to go over that. So it made it a little bit easier to have that thing in my face, but I definitely, like, food shopping was so hard, man. Like, walking through there and just being like, I definitely fucked up a few times. But the time I was thinking of not doing it, I was working out with Brewster, and we were at a different gym, and their incline bench was like really weird. It had like a weird angle, and I
did not see it going in that direction.
So I pulled my left pec pretty bad.
Gotcha.
Because, the thing about that is it's so easy to get injured on prep because you're still stupid strong because you're on, all this crap, but you're dehydrated at the same time. So it's like easy to get injured. So I messed up this pec, and I remember going insane like the rest of the day. I was just like, I can't do it. I can't do the show. My pec's not going to be full because that's my like side chest side. Like,
right.
And, it ended up healing pretty quick. I did some stuff to it, but that was probably the closest I got to not doing it. But it brings me back to that thing. I don't do things unless I know I can succeed. And I was like, if I can't train chest and my chest sucks because I can't train it for it was like 6 weeks out. I was like, well, I'm not going to win the show if my chest sucks, so I'm not going to do it. And, if that had not healed as well as it did, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Gotcha. So. No, it makes sense. So what do you think, after doing the show, you went through the full prep, the rebound after the show, like, it just fucks everybody up. Like, well, I guess I'll jump on that first. Like, I might as well ask, like, how crazy was your rebound? Did you just feast like everything known to mankind? Yeah,
it was insane. It was absolutely insane. There's a post on my Instagram. It's one of the ones I just reposted actually, about how I literally fucked up my rebound. It was insane. So I weighed in at 192, and I was like 225 in like a week. It was insane.
That's bad.
I ended up going
this because isn't your blood pressure and all that shit?
Yeah,
like,
Brewster and Allie ended up taking me to the hospital because my fucking blood pressure was 180/80.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It was insane. It was so bad, Jeff, that my vision was getting blurry because there was water behind my eyes.
That's called water retention to the max.
Dude, I couldn't see. My blood pressure was so high. I couldn't.
That's so bad.
It was so bad. I would take my socks off and there was this massive divot in my ankle.
Oh my God, dude.
It was so bad. And a lot of that obviously is from just being on diuretics for a week and then just cutting them off.
Right.
So I made
your sodium level was probably like 15,000 milligrams.
Yeah, it was insane. And then obviously just more food. I tried to limit the salt intake, which is the fact that it's more food, it's more sodium.
Right. More carbs.
And our last week, I borrowed the peak week protocol from Coach Amin Alaei, who coached Titus O'Neil back in the day, Tony Friedman, and he just has this hell week, what he calls it, peak week, where you go like 0 carbs and you're doing these 100 rep drop sets, and it's insane.
That's
and then
wild.
And like the water, Lasix, you name it, it was nuts. It worked, but
yeah,
we worked
just
nuts.
minus the whole blurred vision concept at the end.
It was after, that was
after. That was after.
It was crazy.
So, all right, so flipping the script a little on this.
Yeah.
If you had someone, like obviously you've coached people, you work with people, but if you have someone that comes to you, I guess we can do two perspectives. We'll do it this way: is if you have someone that comes to you, is like, hey, I want to do a show, whether it's female bikini or a male bodybuilder, like, what is a piece of advice if they're coming into the show? They're like, hey, I want to do a show. Like, what's a piece of advice you can give me going into the show, or like whether it's what to expect, or like, what do you think there's some piece of advice you give to someone that wants to compete in general, I guess?
Well, get a coach.
Yeah.
Whether you think you know what you're doing or not, you probably do know what you're doing sometimes in some cases. But the part that I hated the most was that it was all on me. Well, I loved and hated that. Because let's say I got first place. That was me. No one helped me. It was all me. And that was cool. And at the same time, if I, got 8th, I failed and it was my fault, right? So that's why I chose not to have a coach for the first time. But when someone else is calling the shots, someone else who, has sugar in their bloodstream and, is consciously aware of life because they're not starving, that helps. And it's not about like who knows more or who doesn't know more.
It's just an objective person.
Yeah. So I would say the biggest thing is like, drop your ego and get help, because it's not about whether you're smart enough to write a diet.
Yes.
You need someone in your corner. And even with having Brewster do it with me, like he didn't like coach me or anything, but like just having him do most of the workouts with me and a lot of the cardio with me, that helped so much. I could not have done that completely on my own.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's a struggle. You're going through so much shit. Like people don't realize, like unless you kind of have a sadistic side to your mindset and enjoy suffering, like the entire prep is horrible. Like for like 4 or 5 minutes on a stage, which you kind of feel good, but not really. And then, so it's kind of like, you have to be so intrinsically motivated, and most people are just doing it now to impress other people. Like, hey, I did a show. Like, you have to like be so like, I want to see what I'm physically capable of.
Funny, yeah. I didn't even announce I was doing it until I was like 4 weeks out. I didn't want anyone to know. It was totally a me thing. And I hate that nowadays. It's like everybody's like, oh, I'm competing. Instagram.
99% of people aren't ready to compete. And even when I competed, I was very different than you, but I feel like I have a very similar mindset. I have always been a person, and it's bit me in the ass to put it out there like, hey, I'm doing this because now I have to do it, because then I have to have the consequences of like, if I don't do it, then I just called myself out. So like that almost like kept me on track. But it was like, fuck, man, I already told Chad I had to do it, and I told Brewster I had to do it, and I fucking told Troy I had to do it. So now I have to do it, or they'll be like, dude, what the fuck? Yeah. So I want to, the last few questions, I kind of want to switch the script a tiny bit, because obviously I want to talk about the bodybuilding side, the fitness side of it, but I want to go more into the mindset side of it. Because obviously going through all this, like you've achieved a lot. At least I think you have for being 24, whether you've had your roller coasters from, as you just said, being a kid. I mean, between me and you, like, I know your roller coasters you had in college,
Oh, yeah.
and debating on that. So I guess I want to ask, the first question is, if I had to just put this in a whole perspective, is like, what is one of the most difficult things you went through that pops first into your head? It can be anything. And then how did you kind of get out of that spot to keep moving forward to get to the point you are today? And it doesn't have, and it can kind of go in any direction you want.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, and I mean, this, like my first breakup in college was insanely hard. Hadn't really dealt with something like that, like emotional trauma, as much in my life. And it was tough because up till that point, I had considered myself this like tough dude because I survived all this bullying. Like, I thought I knew everything. I thought I was like, I know what it feels like to suffer. I know what it feels like for people to hate me and, make fun of me and whatever. And I'm invincible. Right. And that was like a huge left hook. So, I mean, I won't get into like, what happened, but like for me to overcome that mentally was a huge process. And it took me a good year, maybe, just to create value in my own self, like I'm on this earth for me. I can't be of value to other people if I'm depressed, if I'm, in a bad mood all the time, if I'm feeling sorry for myself. I can't provide in any way to my friends, my family, myself. So for me to learn how to overcome, that type of adversity or any adversity was probably the hardest thing for me to do. But with that said, it's that one and my latest one have been huge lessons, and they're lessons that I carry into the future, and not just about relationships, but I guess relationships, but not necessarily girlfriends, but friends, coworkers, bosses, all of these. And really, I think life is about relationships. If you were alone on the earth, you wouldn't have anything. You could have cars and houses, and it doesn't matter, because obviously, a lot of our life is about relationships.
Right.
So I would say, those breakups were the hardest things, but they taught me a lot about people and how to deal with that. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, man. I mean, I think a lot of people can relate to that, and it's easy to spiral after that, and try to figure yourself out. And that's going to lead into the last question I got for you. And this is one I want to ask, all the guests moving forward, but I think it relates really well to your story too, is what advice would you give someone that is struggling to find themselves?
So I have an interesting answer to that one.
Yeah.
To be honest, I wouldn't give them any advice, because I could look at how I struggled, and I had like we've gone over many struggles. My parents not being together and fighting all the time, me moving, being bullied, breakup 1, breakup 2, you name it. Friends who I thought were my friends, and then it turns out they're not my friends, and there's just that all of that made me who I am today. And it would be tough for me to go back in time and give myself advice, because then it would be different, right? So it's that whole thing, like, with these time travel movies, and they're like, don't talk to your former self because it'll mess up the future. That's, it's silly, but it's true. So if I went back in time, I wouldn't even give myself advice, because it made me, I wouldn't have those lessons. So my answer to the question is, the advice I would give people who are struggling to find themselves is, just keep going. Just keep going. Things change, whether they be positive or negative. Everything in life changes. Change is the nature of human life. Embrace change. And there's been many times where I was afraid to make a big change in my life. And once I did it, I was so glad I did it. So the only thing I would say is embrace change, both positive and negative.
That's awesome, man. No, I love it. I mean, it's right into what we started at the beginning, is like just, chasing that discomfort, pushing yourself to be uncomfortable.
It feeds right into that statement. Yep. Chase discomfort. At the times I've done that in my life, I've been more successful. And if I didn't do that, I would be nowhere where I am today. So
yeah. Now you're out in Boston doing your thing, man. It's awesome. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming out with me. I know it was a little chaotic getting this thing set up. So be cool. We'll definitely do another one soon. It's pumped that you can be the first one to get it going, and we'll stay in touch, and, we'll keep talking, and we'll get on again. All right, brother. Thank you. I'll talk to you later, Ben.
Peace.